Happy Saturday, y'all. It's Jason in the Simpademic. I thought I would drop a programming note here real quick to get started. And that programming note is I've made my decision on when I'm going to post on weekends. And the answer is I'm going to keep it very simple. It's going to also be 5 o'clock on Saturdays and Sundays as well. That is Central Time. And so that is going to be 5 o'clock p.m. 7 days a week Central Time. Now, with that out of the way, let me get on to my subject. And that is how to recover from the absolute nuclear bomb I took this week in regards to two female gym owners. And one that drove me almost into the arms of the MGTOW movement. And of course, as I said in yesterday's episode, I finally, after a lot of soul searching, came to the decision that was not for me, because that movement is not of God. In fact, it opposes what God's plan is for us. Now, with that said, I'm going to expand on that by saying that biblically we're not necessarily required or commanded necessarily to initiate or approach relationships with women. I have not found an example in any of my studies that indicates that that's the case. With that said, though, God meant for men and women to not only get along, but to build each other up and also to go forth and multiply as a society. So he has a plan for both of us, and I can't write off one half of the human race just because two women decided to completely lambaste me, push me aside, and smear me. And so in that regard, I have to admit that, yes, some women do suck, as Billy Ray Brandt once said, but blowing off an entire half of the human race is just not acceptable to the God that I follow. So, where do I go from here is the steps, recovering from a week like this. How does one recover from being on the cusp of going MGTOW to getting back to promoting a more harmonious society? Well, the answer is going to be kind of basically an extension of what I've been doing all along up to that point. And it's gradual, it's intentional, but it's step by step. Leveling up in areas of my life where I've been focusing on leveling up. And I'm going to continue to do that on my fitness journey, but it's going to be through I'm doing an intro call on Monday through a app called Trainwell. And I'm looking at developing a home routine and some home workouts that are going to help me get there in that regard. As far as even talking to women is concerned, again, I have social awkwardness, and a lot of situations do cause social anxiety for me personally, which has probably been part of my problem all along. But I was at work yesterday, and there's one that I talk to on a semi-regular basis, and she basically sits across from me these days, and I just happened to mention that, she's in there kind of in a hoodie and doesn't really, super get dressy for work purposes. I don't get dressy either, but I don't go like that. But at the same time, I said, you know what? You just seem to me like you're kind of one of the guys. And she actually kind of smiled at that. And I thought to myself, this is somebody who I can practice having a conversation with. Because she's safe. She knows I don't have any intentions on that regard, because as part of our conversations, I mentioned that, she has 3 young children. And I've mentioned along the way that I don't have the energy for that personally if that opportunity ever came along. So I thought to myself yesterday, you know what? Why not start here and find more people like her? in my walk through life. As I mentioned also in a previous episode, I did join a small group for the summer at my church, and it's an older singles group. And I've mentioned before that a lot of the women do talk constantly, nonstop about the Bible, the church, and Jesus and things like that. So I've taken it upon myself as a challenge to try to get them to talk about other things. And I'll let you guys know how that works out. I just want to talk about other things in life besides that, because I don't think that's attractive to anybody. And I certainly don't think it helps the cause of Jesus. To have people who do nothing but talk about that all day long in every conversation that they have. And thus, that makes you just super unrelatable. So taking that as a challenge, I'm going to try to get my conversational act together in that environment as well. And I'm going to try to work through some of the awkward and some of the anxiety that I have. And of course, I also have generalized anxiety disorder, which doesn't help. And because I have GAD, those situations, including the ones that happened this week, can cause, panic attacks. Fortunately, those two did not. But I need to work with my therapist on leveling up that area of my life. I'm going to continue to do what I had always done up to that point, and just going to continue to follow through on those. That's going to be how I'm going to recover from this. That's how I'm going to be able to get stronger and resist the MGTOW temptations again. And as I said before in that ministry video that I saw, the men who are in the MGTOW movement have largely rightfully suffered a lot of pain from women, as did I. However, what these men need more than anything is prayers and guidance, because as Ruth, the MGTOW movement is a selfish movement. It's all about self, and all about, men like myself were thinking about getting into it as a means of preserving self. But then as you go along, as you carry along through that particular lifestyle, it does become more selfish and more me. And usually at the expense of women. And it becomes a situation where most of these men actually despise the other half of the human race, the female species. And the more I looked at that, I was like, this is not biblical. This is not what God wanted for us. And so I'm going to carry on as I always have, leveling up in parts of my life, following the possibility of that series of dreams that I've had over the past 5 years. The future Lauren Reichert. But the thing that she has is that she has suffering and overcoming of difficulties on a level of myself. So what I'm looking for is a very rare person. And I think to find somebody of that particular quality, you're going to have to kind of carry through life and have as many conversations as you possibly can. And if somebody comes along and shows up and is somewhere in that ballpark, I'm the son of alcoholic and abusive parents. I'm a cult survivor. I'm a traumatic brain injury survivor. And now after that, I am a survivor of false accusations. And yet I have not been in criminal trouble. I've overcome every single time. This woman, of course, in the most recent dream that I've had, I find out that she's actually been the victim of being hit by a vehicle. And the pain that I envisioned myself in that dream, trying to even imagine what that was like. To be hit by a car doing 60 miles an hour. on the side of the road and surviving. I do think that this is a spiritual dream because it's kind of the only way that that kind of thing would ever happen for me. I don't have the social skills. I don't have the social tools. I don't have the knowledge or wherewithal to know what I'm doing in that arena. I originally used to think that the many years that I was in the ICC actually took that away from me because maybe men had figured out all these things about how to approach and how to handle women that I was denied throughout my 20s and 30s. Because they took care of everything for me, because you could only date within the cult. You could not date outside of it. Everything was taken care of for you. I was even pushed into the marriage I was in because I was basically told what I was going to do. And I thought, okay, maybe there was some sort of skill set that other men had developed throughout those years that I had not been able to build. Turns out being that actually is not true. I am in a very large company. There's nothing special about my situation because, well, most men find themselves in a very similar boat. So they don't have some sort of special skill or any special tool that would be common to everybody else. That doesn't exist. So, to sum up, I'm going to carry on as I always have. Somebody on another thread in another video suggested a defamation lawsuit. To which I thought to myself, well, I could, but the problem is I cannot prove who I've been defamed to or that they've even necessarily spread any information about myself to everybody else. If I get to the point that I do eventually find out that they did spread in false information, then I can cross that bridge when I get there. But for the time being, I'm not at that point, and I'll leave that. I'll let that dog lie. So going on from that, I'm going to carry forth as I always have. I'm not going to write off half of the human race. I'm not going to write off all women because 2 of them burned me badly. Or in the past, there have been two others. I mean, as far as the false accusations go, they don't come up very often. It's not like it's a regular feature in my life where I can look back at it and say, that there's any certain behavioral trend of mine that has led to that. I think the false accusations in my case are made up because somebody didn't like the content on my page. And they use that as an extension to try to kind of bully me into potentially stopping doing what I'm doing, which obviously backfired when I quit their gym. And they don't have any power over me anymore. In the end, I'm going to press forward as I always have. I'm going to accept the possibility that God might very well have a woman out there for me, whether it's Dream Lauren or whether it's somebody else. But the qualifications and the standards that I have for that woman are very unique and very narrow. And I think in my particular case, I think that's okay. And I think those types of standards I think are excellent. Now the standards that women have for many men of having to be 6 foot tall, 6'4", make 6 figures or even mid 6 figures. The videos out there seem to get more outrageous by the day. But I'm not going to let what a few attention-seeking TikTokers do change what I do or how I view things. Again, these are videos that are clickbait for their outrageousness, and some of the manosphere channels create them to fuel rage. Manosphere channels like Manhood, The Man Guide, Cosmic Verse. I could go on because I think I've ran into several of these. Men Only. These channels exist. They're AI generated content. They exist to fuel rage. I'm sure they use their AI to get the most outrageous female content possible. I can't rule that off, but I'm not going to actively pursue at the same time. I'm going to keep kind of a Zen mode about all of this to the best I know how. And so that is going to be how I carry myself forward. Am I going to chase? Am I going to pursue? No. Hence the name of this channel and the Simpademic. I don't think men should be chasing or simping for women. Because at the end of the day, I'm in control. Simping is not in control. It's done by men who are trying to control the women's actions. So this is a long one today, guys. Appreciate you if you've watched this all the way to the end. That's going to be how I'm going to pick myself up off the floor, dust off, and just keep running. If you've ever been through something like this, just let me know in the comments, please. If you have any suggestions on how I can beef up on this, also let me know in the comments. I would most certainly appreciate it. You folks have yourselves a great weekend, a good Saturday night. Don't do anything stupid, don't drink and drive. And you folks have a great Saturday night and a good Sunday too. Thank you very much. Peace out, homies.